The title of the article is Postmodernism, Late Capitalism and Rhizome in Doctorow's novel Ragtime. Jameson considers totality a valuable idea because we are still trying to understand our world. We do not succeed because knowledge gives us power to understand more. The more we understand, the more scattered the pieces get. In this article, it has been tried to look at the novel Ragtime by E.L.Doctorow from different perspectives. Jameson's postmodernism and his ideas about late capitalism rooted in Deleuze and Guattari's concept of Rhizome. This article tries to analyze Ragtime as a historical novel which shows the birth of postmodernism out of changes happening in production system of society. And by considering Doctorow's novel in a Rhizome-like space in which any effort to show the effects of late capitalism is doomed to fail because of non-realistic nature of Rhizome, which unintentionally supports late capitalism. So it is capitalism which wins at last in the novel. The best known theorist who still finds value in talking about totality is Frederick Jameson. He is a literary and art critic who accepts the basic Marxist analysis of society. He works within a master narrative, though he doesn't accept it naively or uncritically. Rather, he tries to change Marxist theory to bring it up to date and make it fit the postmodern world. In the first 6 decades of 20th century, capitalism was solely individual. Governments supported great companies and controlled the smaller countries. The world was changed into intrusive areas, and it was a time of colonization, imperialism, world wars, machines, and electronic devices. In 20th century, in 50s and 60s, everything was changing. The 3 great changes in production systems were transformation in individual capitalism to late capitalism, great vastness of international companies, national economy as a complex international economy, uselessness of colonization in European way, cooperation of native talents with rich and powerful industrial talents, computer era, mass media, instead of electronic devices which were considered as the most valuable assets. As Ira Chernes mentions, modernism was the culture of individual capitalism, but postmodernism is the culture of international or late capitalism. The dominant power of culture, cultural army of today capitalism, and the most powerful tool of capitalism for dominating our lives. Jameson titled his major book on the subject Postmodernism, or the Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism. This does not mean that everything in our culture today is postmodern. There are still many leftover elements of modern culture with us. There may also be newly emerging seeds of some future cultural forms beyond postmodernism. But today, postmodernism is a dominant force in our culture. It is a force that everything and everybody must deal with. Just as capitalism tries to bring all the forces of production under its control, so postmodernism is trying to bring all of culture under its control. Jameson mentions that postmodernism should be understood as a sign of deeper structural changes in our society and culture as a whole or in production system. He also mentions that special features of postmodernism are the sign or implicator of a new problem, which is historically original. A problem which is because of our entrance as individual subjects into a plural combination of incoherent realities, which includes framework from remaining private lives to unimaginable, decentered international capitalism. As a result, in Jameson's view, destruction or death of modern political subject is the result of postmodern worldwide hyperspace. Postmodernism has ripped the humanistic subject in a radical way, anticipated the concept of time, and confused the spatial coordination. As a result, political subjects are changed into schizophrenic and unpolitical subjects who is not able to make organized aesthetic superimpositions for themselves. Meaningfulness or meaninglessness of the world are constructed by media assimilation and commercialized unfundamental superrealities, and eradicate social changes motives. In Jameson's view, the postmodern subject does not have any tool for finding out who he is, where he has come from, and what his place in this world is. Postmodern subjects do not have any ability to enhance their political potential in order to think critically about world changes or fight for these changes. Of course, we have to mention that they would be repressed if they had such potential. One main assumption in Marxist analysis from the world totality is that our life is shaped by the society production system. The production system means variant tools existent for the production of goods, services, and systematic ways of these tools. As it was mentioned, the change in our culture from modernism to postmodernism reflects the change in production system of society. The only way, as Jameson considers, for the improvement of the world condition is that everyone share the real power, otherwise inequality, discrimination, and repression are to be continued. Deleuze and Guattari represent the Rhizome structure as an intentional effort for creation of resistance against capitalism. This system provides the possibility of multiplicity outside capitalist controlled systems. Rhizome is a decentralized system without history, publicity, or memory. But is this system as radical as it seems? As Jameson Berger mentions, Rhizome system is not revolutionary as it wants to be, because this system goes beyond rejection of its conscious resistance, and actually is transforming into a tool for advancement of capitalism. Its definitions and elements are mixed and dependent on the old systems which it wants to resist against them. The system is available only in metaphorical, immaterial, and non-political areas. Rhizome is a system like monopolism of capitalism, which spirits multiplicity in which things are related to each other, rather than being related to their sources. So, the deterritorialization of Rhizome exists in a metaphorical space, so the revolutionary tools have no danger in the safe body of Rhizome. Jameson talks about an important literary sample in historical novels. He mentions Doctorow's novel Ragtime with its early century atmosphere to talk about why nostalgic movies should be considered different from old historical films or novels. The novel centers on a wealthy family living in New Rochelle, New York City, simply named Father, Mother, Mother's younger brother, grandfather, and a little boy. Father is a manufacturer of flags and fireworks, evidently an easy source of wealth due to the national enthusiasm for patriotic displays. He joins the first expedition to the North Pole, and on his return he sees a change in the sexual politics of his relationship with his wife. Younger brother is an insecure, unhappy character who chases after love and excitement. Into this secure setup comes first an abandoned black child, then his sorrowful, depressed mother Sarah. Kohlhaas Walker, apparently the child's father, visits the family. A professional musician, well-dressed and well-spoken, he gains the family's respect and overcomes their prejudice initially by playing ragtime music under a badly tuned piano. He owns a luxury car. Things go well until he is humiliated by a racist fire crew, and his inflexible pride brings him to demand restitution. then restoring to violent revenge eventually, rather than pursue a course of love and happiness. Mother unofficially adopts a neglected child after Sarah dies at the hand of brutal police guards. In the slums of New York City, a single father, Tate, a Jewish man, struggles to support himself and his daughter, little girl. The girl's beauty attracts the attention of Evelyn Nesbit. He appears later by submerging into capitalist culture, and he has become a wealthy pioneer of animation in the moving picture industry. By the end of the novel, surviving members of the three family groups have merged into one in an allegorical representation of the American melting pot. Jameson says that Doctorow is a serious artist and among rare radical authors today. He thinks that Doctorow's narrations represent cultural cliches and our ideas about past instead of just reflecting our historical past. In postmodern world, cultural production has been thrown to back of the mind into a monadic subject who is not able to directly look at real world as a source with his own eyes. But he has to follow the virtual pictures of the world on the Plato cave. If there is realism, it is a realism which comes out of the sudden understanding of the truth that for any reason we are sentenced to search for our historical past in pop pictures and cliches. Though past itself will be remained out of our hands, postmodernism means rapture from anything called bohemian. Brown argues about Jameson's essay on postmodernism or the cultural logic of late capitalism, which provided an influential analysis of its historical moment. He states that Jameson identifies Doctorow's novel Ragtime as a benchmark for literary responses to the climate. In a failed attempt to tell a coherent story about America as a nation of immigrants, Ragtime presents a bewildering array of characters, narrative styles, and fictitious and historical plots. The narrator tries comically and ironically to provide a historical overview that unites the fictional and historical. However, the reader struggles to make any sense out of a patchwork of lives and narratives. Whilst a conventional historical novel tries to represent the interconnection between minor private lives and public historical figures, Jameson says that Ragtime is organized systematically and formally to short-circuit an older type of social and historical interpretation which it perpetually holds out and withdraws. In Routledge Critical Thinkers, Adam Roberts states his idea about Jameson and says that Jameson goes on in postmodernism and consumer society to analyze exactly what this postmodernism constitutes, stressing that for him it is not just another word for a description of a particular style. It is also a periodizing concept which correlates to a new type of social life and a new economic order. What is often euphemistically called modernization, post-industrial, or consumer society, the society of the media, or the spectacle, or multinational capitalism. This outburst of new way of life is resulted from fundamental changes in production systems and economic culture of society which penetrate into people's social lives. Doctorow's language draws our attention to the wholesale elisions and simplifications which are needed in order to produce this representation of democracy. Instead of a novel which represents the historical past, the stylist prose self-reflexively represents our ideas and stereotypes about the past. However, Joseph Volk talks about Frederick Jameson's discussion of the novel in his work Postmodernism, or the cultural logic of late capitalism, which he finds it in his article certainly one of the most challenging descriptions of Doctorow's place in postmodern culture. Jameson describes Doctorow as the epic poet of the disappearance of the American radical past, who has had to convey this great theme by way of that very cultural logic of the postmodern, which is itself the mark and symptom of his dilemma. Doctorow, by highlighting and representing the cultural cliches, makes us think about the rapture from a traditional society and see the fundamental transformation of society into a postmodern society. He gives us a further narration of history by the use of deterritorialization and representing cliches and cultural signs to be able to stay in the safe Rhizome. But this safe area provides an atmosphere for intellectuals to satisfy their motivations which are improbable in real and material world. The production system changes in Ragtime. Father's job transforms into the younger brother's techniques and methods, which results into destruction of father and destruction of the old paternity models of production, which is the same as decentralization of postmodernism, and results into this transformation into the role of Tete as the new production systems of late capitalism. Tete is the only character who really succeeds in the novel and who forced his art into the forms of consumer society by mixing the picture with media to show a wave of changing pictures to the people's eyes. Capitalism is the inevitable winner of a story in the safe body of Rhizome, in which the signs are changed and re-narrated metaphorically by the old world words and meanings which are needed for defining the Rhizome structure. Ragtime is a symbolic social reaction which tries to indicate social paradoxes by representing imaginational solutions, but at last it is trapped in the safe Rhizome, and it is the late capitalism which is the winner of the story. I really appreciate your attention.